There are moments in life when we pause in the midst of the hurried rhythm and ask ourselves, why do we still not feel at peace? Even though we have tried so hard, we have made efforts to become better, to achieve more, to build a life that we once believed would bring happiness. But deep inside, there's still a quiet space that has not been touched, a place that no external success seems able to fill. We live in a world where everything is constantly moving. Information keeps pouring in. Expectations keep being placed upon us. Standards keep changing. We are drawn into the whirlwind of having to keep up, to prove ourselves, to become a better version of ourselves every day. And in that process, we gradually forget something very important. Peace is not something we achieve when everything is perfect, but something we can touch even when everything is still unfinished. There is a very profound paradox that not everyone realizes. The more we try to seek peace, the further we move away from it, because that very seeking often comes from a sense of lack. We believe that we are not peaceful enough, not good enough, not complete enough, and so we begin a journey with no stopping point. But true peace is not ahead of us. It is not a reward for those who have completed all their goals. It is an inner state, one that appears only when we stop chasing and begin to return. Returning does not mean abandoning the world, but coming back to ourselves, returning to the breath that is happening, to the heartbeat that is pulsing, to the life that is present in every moment. But this is not easy, because our mind has become accustomed to looking outward. It is always searching for something to hold on to pursue, to worry about. And when there is nothing to do, it creates thoughts, scenarios, fears, keeping us from ever truly resting. Perhaps that is why many people feel exhausted, not because they do too much, but because they have never truly stopped. Even when the body rests, the mind keeps running. It revisits the past, worries about the future, and rarely stays with the present. And it is this disconnection that causes us to lose our sense of connection with life. But if we are still enough to observe, we will realize something very simple. Peace is not something that needs to be created. It has always been there. It is simply covered by layers of thoughts, emotions, and expectations. Like the sky that is always vast behind the clouds, peace is always present behind the disturbances of the mind. And to touch that, we do not need to change our entire life. We only need to begin with very small things, a moment of listening to ourselves, a moment of realizing that we are being carried away by thought, a decision not to react immediately to a strong emotion. These small things, if nurtured, will gradually open a new space where we are no longer controlled by circumstances, but begin to live more consciously. The 5 secrets to finding peace are not magical formulas. They are not distant or difficult to attain. In fact, they are very close, very ordinary, but easily overlooked, because we often seek grand things, while true transformation begins with very subtle changes within. Each secret is not a technique to control life, but a way to understand it more deeply, not to eliminate difficulties, but to change how we perceive them, not to avoid emotions, but to learn how to be with them without being swept away, and most importantly, not to become someone else, but to return to who we truly are, a person who already has the capacity for peace. This journey does not promise perfection. It does not guarantee that life will always be easy, but it offers something far more valuable, a stable foundation from within, a place we can return to no matter what is happening outside, a stillness that is not broken by fluctuations, a sense of completeness that does not depend on how much we have. And perhaps the most important thing is not that you understand everything immediately, but that you allow yourself to begin listening, to begin observing, to begin realizing that amidst all the noise of life, there is always a quiet space waiting for you to return. In the next parts, we will go deeper into each secret, not to search for something new, but to gradually remove the layers that have made us forget the peace that has always been there. And as each layer falls away, you will begin to realize that peace is not something you have to seek. It is something you only need to remember. The first secret to touching peace does not lie in changing the world, but in learning how to stop. It sounds simple, but this is the most difficult thing for modern humans. We have become accustomed to always doing something, always moving forward, always filling every gap with activity and thought. But that very restlessness makes our minds tired and disordered. When we truly stop, another door begins to open. Not the door of success or achievement, but the door of awareness. We begin to clearly see what is happening within us. Thoughts flowing one after another, emotions that come and go, reactions we were never aware of before. And in that awareness, a space appears where we are no longer carried away by everything, but begin to have the ability to observe it. The second secret is learning to accept. Not acceptance in the sense of resignation, but a deep understanding that everything happening has its own reason. Life is not always easy, and people are not always perfect. When we stop resisting reality, we no longer waste energy on invisible battles. We no longer ask, "Why me?" but begin to ask, "What is this teaching me?" Acceptance brings a very unique sense of lightness. It does not make difficulties disappear, but it reduces the burden we place on ourselves. When there is no longer resistance, we begin to see more clearly. And when we see clearly, we begin to understand. And when we understand, a natural peace arises. The third secret is letting go of control. Humans tend to want to control everything: outcomes, people, circumstances, even the future. We believe that if we control well enough, we can avoid suffering. But the truth is, the more we try to control, the more anxious we feel, because life cannot be fully controlled. Letting go does not mean giving up responsibility. It is the recognition of the boundary between what we can do and what we cannot. We still act, still make efforts, but we no longer cling to the results. We do our best, then allow things to unfold in their own way. And in that release, we find a very deep freedom from pressure, from fear, from the need to hold on to life. The fourth secret is returning to the present. This is the only place where peace truly exists. The past is only memory. The future is only imagination. But our minds often live in those two places, causing us to miss the only moment that is truly happening. When we return to the present, everything becomes clearer. A breath, a step, a sound, everything becomes vivid in a way we had not noticed before. And in that vividness, there is no place for worrying or regret. There is only presence. There is only life unfolding. The final secret, and also the deepest, is understanding ourselves. Not understanding through analysis or judgment, but through unconditional observation. We begin to recognize the habits of the mind, the hidden fears, the desires we have never named. And when we see them clearly, they gradually lose their power to control us. Understanding ourselves is not a destination, but an ongoing journey. Yet that journey brings a very great transformation. We are no longer trapped in unconscious reactions. We begin to live more consciously, more gently, and more freely. When these 5 secrets are gradually absorbed, we realize that peace is not something distant. It is not out of reach. It does not need to be sought in grand things. It only needs to be recognized in very small things, in how we stop, how we accept, how we let go, how we are present, and how we understand ourselves. And then, one day, without any special moment, without any clear milestone to mark it, we suddenly realize that we have changed, not because life has become perfect, but because we no longer need it to be perfect, not because everything is easy, but because we have learned how to remain still even in what is not easy. That is peace, quiet, unassuming, yet deep enough to transform the way we live entirely. And then, when all those secrets are no longer just ideas to think about, but gradually become the way we live each day, a very quiet transformation begins to take place, not noisy, not sudden, not requiring any dramatic moment, just a gentle shift in how we see life and how we face ourselves. We no longer feel the need to rush somewhere, no longer feel that we are being left behind if we do not achieve something faster or more. Instead, a slower rhythm begins to appear, not a delay, but an awareness. We begin to walk more slowly, but more deeply, live less in the mind, but more in reality. And in that slowing down, we begin to notice things we had never seen before. An ordinary moment gains depth, a small thing becomes meaningful. Not because the world has changed, but because the way we experience it has. We no longer skim through life, but begin to touch it. Peace at this point is no longer a distant goal. It becomes a quiet foundation, always present no matter what situation we are in. When things go well, we are not carried away by excitement. When things are difficult, we are no longer overwhelmed by anxiety. There is a very subtle balance. Like an inner anchor, we can return to at any moment. But even more profound is how we begin to change the way we face suffering. Before, we always tried to avoid it, seeing it as something wrong that needed to be eliminated. But now we begin to look at it differently, not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Every pain carries a message. Every difficulty opens an opportunity to understand ourselves more deeply. And when we no longer resist suffering, something strange happens. It is no longer as frightening as we once thought. It comes, then goes, like everything else. But in that process, it leaves a mark, not a wound, but a growth, a stability that cannot be easily shaken. We also begin to realize that peace does not mean life becomes quiet. The world will still be noisy, things will still change, unpleasant situations will still happen. But the difference is this: we no longer let those things determine our inner state. We no longer lose ourselves every time circumstances change. There is a great freedom in this. Freedom from having to control everything. Freedom from having to please everyone. Freedom from having to become an image that society expects. We begin to live more authentically, more lightly, and more sincerely, not because we no longer care, but because we are no longer bound. And perhaps one of the most beautiful changes is how we treat ourselves. We are no longer so harsh, no longer blaming ourselves for every mistake, no longer forcing ourselves to always be strong. Instead, at gentleness appears a deep understanding that we are simply human, learning to live, learning to understand, learning to love. That gentleness does not make us weak. On the contrary, it creates a very deep strength, the strength of acceptance, of patience, of compassion. And from that, we not only become more at peace with ourselves, but also begin to radiate that peace to those around us. Perhaps this journey has no clear ending. There will be no day when we can say, I am completely and permanently at peace. But that does not matter, because this very journey, each step of returning, each moment of realizing, each instant of awareness is already peace. If you are on this path, even if you have just begun, remember that you do not need to go fast. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to understand everything immediately. You only need to keep returning to yourself, to the present, to awareness, and little by little, you will feel the change. And if within these reflections you find something that touches your heart, leave a comment, not to say something perfect, but simply to share a thought, a genuine feeling, because sometimes your sharing becomes a light for someone walking in the dark. If you wish to continue this journey of exploring peace, consider subscribing to the channel, not for a number, but because this can be a small space, a place you can return to whenever you feel tired, a place that reminds you that you do not need to become someone else to be worthy of peace. Finally, I send you a very simple wish. May you find peace not somewhere far away, but right within this life, right within what is not yet perfect, right within the most ordinary moments. And when you realize that, you will understand peace has never left you. You have simply just learned how to return. I send to you, the one listening to these words, a wish not only in speech, but with all stillness and sincerity. May you be at peace. May it be that in days when your mind feels tired, you can still find a quiet space to rest. In moments when your heart feels unsteady, may there be a silent inner anchor strong enough so that you do not lose yourself. May you learn to be a little more gentle with yourself. When you make mistakes, may you understand instead of blame. When you feel weak, may you embrace instead of deny. When you are tired, may you allow yourself to pause without guilt, because peace does not come from always being strong, but from being honest with what you are going through. May you have moments of true presence when you breathe in and know that you are breathing in. When you walk and know that you are walking. When you live without being carried away by the past or the future. And in those simple moments, may you realize that life is not distant, but right here, very close, very real. May your heart be light enough to let go of what is no longer needed. Let go of worries that do not belong to the present. Let go of expectations that exhaust you. Let go even of the things you once believed you could not live without. And in letting go, you will not lose. You will become more open, freer, and more peaceful. Not only for you, but this wish is also set to everyone wherever they are, whatever they are going through. May those who are suffering find a light. May those who are lost find a path. May those who are lonely feel a sense of connection, even if only a small one. May this world, though still full of uncertainty, always have people who choose to slow down, choose understanding over judgment, choose love over harm, because each peaceful soul is a small seed, helping to soften this vast world. And if one day everything feels too heavy, remember that you can always return. There is no need to go far, No need to seek anything grand. Just return to your breath, to yourself, to the present moment. There, peace is always waiting for you. I wish for you and for the whole world not only to find peace, but to learn how to preserve it, nurture it, and share it gently, steadily, and with love.